Thanks very much for the invitation to speak today at this really important conference to discuss building the call for sanctions. And I have to acknowledge and commend the Palestine Solidarity Campaign for their long-standing commitment to justice for the Palestinian people and for their active support for the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement. There's no doubt about it, your efforts to promote awareness and solidarity and action are vital in the fight for human rights and international law, and it truly is an honour to join you all today in discussing the Occupied Territories Bill and the urgent need that here in Ireland and other countries to stand up against illegal occupation and land theft. And when we look at the horror unfolding in Gaza, which is an actual genocide broadcast in real time, at the relentless theft of land and homes right across the West Bank, it should summon on us the anger to demand real action. And every day we all see the footage of innocent children starving for the lack of food, with sunken eyes and visible rib cages, while infant formula is left to rot in trucks just a few miles away. And I think of the I just think about how unforgivable this is, and I think about how my own beautiful grandchildren, and I look at them every day and my heart breaks at how criminally wrong this is. And so these horrors are a result of a culture of impunity, and I firmly believe that we have a responsibility to break the decades-long and failed status quo of strong words but no action, and to ensure that there are finally some consequences for Israel's violations of international law. And that's why this legislation is a crucial opportunity to do that. And I know we are working very hard on trying to get it right. And as we all know, there are as many as 750,000 Israeli settlers now living on stolen Palestinian land in East Jerusalem and the West Bank. And Israel's settlements in the illegal occupied Palestinian territory involve the commission of two war crimes: the transfer by an occupying power of its civilian population onto the territory it occupies, and number two, the theft of land and other property in occupied territory. And yet it remains legal for goods and services originating in these settlements to be sold in Ireland and all over the world. The Occupied Territories Bill seeks a complete ban on the import of goods and services produced in the illegal settlements, including Israeli settlements in the occupied Palestinian territory. And if this bill is enacted, Ireland would become the first Western country to enact a ban on trade with illegal Israeli settlements. And you're probably aware of this, but Ireland became the first Western country to ban imports from apartheid South Africa in 1987. And within a few years, most other Western countries followed suit, precipitating the end of South Africa's apartheid regime. So the Occupied Territories Bill is an opportunity for Ireland to show leadership once again on the international stage. And in the 7 years since I first tabled the Occupied Territories Bill, we all know how horrific the situation in Palestine has rapidly deteriorated, and the world is focused on, and rightly so, on the horrific genocidal war in Gaza. But across the West Bank, we're also seeing one of the biggest land grabs in decades, where more homes are destroyed, families are displaced, settlements built, and people are being beaten and killed on a daily basis. And I always ask this question: how can we repeatedly condemn this as illegal but continue to trade in the goods produced? It's clear hypocrisy, and it must stop. And at its core, this bill is about respecting international law and human rights and ensuring that these key protections are reflected in our domestic law. It's a proposal I've pursued because I believe that we have a duty to actively oppose occupation and the illegal annexation of land, both politically and economically. And as Richard just said there, we're all aware last June, the highest court in the world has now effectively said that all countries, including Ireland, are obliged not to trade with the illegal settlements that Israel has built on occupied, stolen Palestinian land. It's not some optional extra. There's no doubt about it. Our legal obligations are clear. And for years, Palestinian academics and NGOs and human rights organisations have been saying this. And I brought in this bill 7 years ago, and it, we have really worked long and hard. And I suppose my main aim is that we have to be absolutely clear on this, that a ban on just the imports of goods would be a significant step back. And unfortunately, our government, who are going to be bringing in this legislation, are talking about just bringing in goods and not settlements. And that would be totally out of step with the ICJ has said is required, which is a full ban on all trade, goods and services. And it's what is rightly done, as Richard said, regarding trade with Russian-occupied territories. So there's no justifying for applying a double standard. And I understand there will be, no doubt pressure on our government, and has been pressure. The activists in Ireland are phenomenal on making sure that services are not going to be dropped. So I suppose I'm conscious of time. So I just wanted to say just a little point that yesterday it was reported in the Irish Times here in Ireland that the plan to ban trade from illegal Israeli settlements in occupied Palestinian territories has been given a boost by senior European officials. So this is just a kind of an update as one option national governments could consider taking to put pressure on Israel. But seemingly a new paper from the EU's diplomatic corps has raised the possibility of national governments blocking Israeli trade from occupied territories without needing to wait for unanimous agreement at EU level. Seemingly, the document sets out various options that the EU or its member states could take to put pressure on Israel, which foreign ministers will discuss, I believe, during a meeting in Brussels on Tuesday. And the document said that the EU had the option of banning imports from settlements in occupied Palestinian territories if it had the backing of all 27 countries. However, an alternative would be governments deciding to ban trade coming from the settlements at national level, it said. So this is really important from our perspective here in Ireland. Officials suggested that we would not need a EU sign-off, because that's what our government has been saying, but that some debate about the permissibility of such moves might have to take place between capitals first. So this is a really significant shift, because for the first time the EU has recognised that individual member states may ban trade with Israel's illegal settlements. So look, no doubt about it, I believe genuinely that we have to absolutely need full sanctions on Israel. And, as I said, when Russia breaches international law and occupies territory, it's rightly sanctioned by the EU. And we should do the same with Israel and any other state. And no one should be above international law. And the EU-Israel trade deal should also be immediately suspended. So the Occupied Territories Bill is a modest minimum step, but it's actually a targeted sanction, and it's the first ever from any EU country. So if this can kickstart a bigger debate, then great. But at an absolute minimum, we have to ban trade with the settlements. And as I said, we became the first country in the world to end trade in goods from apartheid South Africa. And we recognised that what was happening there was wrong, and we refused to support it. And what happened then was two brave workers from Dunn Stores, a major shop here in Ireland, refused to handle oranges from South Africa. And they were backed by their trade union and the people of Ireland. And those women were amazing. They followed their conscience. They were backed. They were kicked off a movement. What they actually do is kicked off a movement across the country, and our politician then followed. They helped change history, contributing to mounting international pressure. And I believe Nelson Mandela himself offered his personal thanks when he was freed from prison. And those striking workers were actually invited to attend his funeral when he passed away, which really goes to show the impact that they had. So this kind of international solidarity from worker to worker is extremely important. And that kind of grassroots activism filters up to our government and other governments and can have a huge influence. And in the case of South Africa, Ireland's stance against apartheid goods sent a signal that tangible, credible, peaceful steps could be taken to oppose what's happening beyond empty condemnation. And I really want to do the same with the Occupied Territories Bill. And my hope is that we will get it passed in the autumn. And I believe, it's time now for Ireland and other countries to absolutely take a stronger stance. And we need to introduce sanctions. We need to enact a bill like the Occupied Territories Bill, and we need to do it as soon as is possible. And thank you again for everything and for all the work that you're doing.